You just need to say it with more
oomph.
That's it. That's more oomph. You say it with more oomph. Bring the energy, and we'll record. I'm excited.
Yes.
Press record.
I've pressed it, mate.
What?
Yeah.
Great.
We keep including these little bits where we mess up, and
it's just not live to pitch without me messing up.
That is life, isn't
it? Wait. I like that.
So we are back.
We are back.
We told you we would be. We weren't lying.
Those cheeky chappies down in the south coast, which is us. We're back.
Is that what we're called?
I don't know. I'm just.
Oh right. Okay.
Off the cuff, mate.
Sounds good.
Off the cuff. Cheeky chappies. Lots of C words.
That's a good way to start with C words.
Loads of C words.
Cat, cobble,
car,
centro.
I love centro.
Camembert.
Camels.
Can we start?
What more?
Can we start?
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, let's start.
Anyway, we're going off on a tangent. Hello.
As we do.
Welcome back to season 2 of Life's a Pitch. Really excited to be back. I can't believe we're on season 2. I can't believe so many people are listening. Thank you lot. Thank you lot. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for all the support you guys gave us in season 1 and everyone for tuning in and to everyone for coming on.
I think the fact that we're even doing a season 2 is quite impressive even for...
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, I wrote a big soppy post on Twitter in the new year thanking everyone, but to say it again, thank you so much for everyone for listening. Thank you so much to our guests for coming on and, engaging with us and chatting to us. Yeah, load of thank yous. I'm starting to sound like an Oscar speech. Just want to thank my mum.
Should I put the music to play you off?
Just want to thank my mum and my dad for supporting me. Right, first episode.
Boom.
So season 2, episode 1. We're gonna start strong. We're really, really excited to have Timo Peach on. He's a creative in every sense of the word. We
said that a couple of times during the podcast.
Yeah, you'll get to know him as over the course of 40, 50 minutes, and he's a copywriter, he's a advertising creative, he's a
musician,
he's a really talented musician, he's an incredible speaker,
entrepreneur,
all of them.
Everything.
He's incredible, and we were really lucky and really grateful to have him on. And yeah, I think one of the funniest episodes we've recorded season.
I think so. We did, as you may have heard from our little teaser that we put out on our social media, there was a point during the podcast where...
we went through the space-time continuum.
Which is quite difficult to do. We did manage it.
We did it quite well, I think.
We did it quite well, yeah.
I'm quite surprised that all parts of me went through it. It was an experience.
Yeah.
I thought, I might leave myself...
And we did it together, that's the important part.
Yeah, as a team.
I
like that. But anyway, we're going to stop rambling. Welcome back to season 2. We hope you enjoy it, all of these episodes, as much as we enjoyed recording them and making them and chatting to these people. Yeah, here we go.
Hello and welcome to Life's a Pitch, and in this edition I'm Timo Peach and I will be your guest for this week. Also joined by me, we can do this in edit, can't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Are your erstwhile hosts Viraj and Nabil.
Hello.
We'll put a little clap in there.
Woo.
Perfect.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm really well, yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this grey and rainy day. I feel like every episode we mention
the weather. Well, the weather's never good, so we sort of... Yeah.
Well, it was last week, it was fine.
It's the basis of many conversations up and down the country because there's always something to talk about.
Are your phones on silent? We probably should have done this before.
Mine's on silent.
I love the way you test this on there. Yes, mine's turned off.
Okay, right. So let's kick this right off because we're very excited to talk to you and chat to you today. First off, could you describe what you do to an alien?
To an alien. All right, assuming we've got a universal translator so I can talk to them. We don't have to set all that up first.
Oh, no, they speak English.
They speak English, but they know nothing.
Okay. I draw boxes for a living and make sounds for a living, and I talk to people for a living, and I just about make a living.
I think that's the best one we've had.
Yeah. Alien
I just made that up. I shouldn't think
Alien's
about
happy.
things beforehand. Yeah, Alien's happy.
Alien Bob is happy.
Bob, I've been getting to know Bob, and he is a good guy. Although he's kind of asexual, so we're saying he feels like a he, but I don't think he is really pinning himself down.
Yeah.
I like the way he's fluid.
He's got a wife and kid.
Is he?
I think so.
Yeah.
Does he?
Maybe.
Who knows?
Who knows? We'll find out about
Husband on one planet, wife on another.
There you go.
That's how it works. Right, so just tell us your story. The story behind Momotempo and the man that is the man and the mystery that is Timo Peach.
Yeah, there's nothing mysterious about
Wait,
me.
is that your real name?
Timo Peach is actually my real name. It's
that.
sort of a version of my name. It started
Okay.
a bit as a joke. It's short for Timothy, long for Tim, and it's got Mo in it. And people often call me Momo. So, yeah, it is my name. I am the bloke from Momo, and if you follow me on Twitter, you'll notice that I get a bit confused between talking about Momo in the third person or as me. And it's largely because it is both me and feels somehow more than just me. So I kind of consciously, weirdly swap between the two. And that sums up the way I work, I think. I work across, as an independent creative, I suppose I'd say. My business gets me working across a spectrum of the arts, from sensible brand conversations at one end and consultation right through to dangling speakers down wells in the woods for installations at the other, and a weird spectrum of things in the middle. And I think that's why I've never grown Momo into a sort of little pocket agency or something with others permanently on staff, because I couldn't grow and feed a team if I keep nipping into the back to play on my keyboard. It's not a good business plan. So in the end, I've comfortable with being fluid and piecing together different teams for every project I work on.
So what would you say has shaped your approach then?
That's a good question. I've always been, in my adult life, I've always been a music artist. That's my creative pilot light, and I'd say what drives me is that artistic bit to explore the world through music for me. But that's always sat alongside my kind of day job, as it was originally. I trained as a graphic designer next door in the art college, as it was then, 100 years ago. Lost in the mist of time, I was here on this campus, learned graphic design and fell into magazine publishing for years, which ended up having a weirdly formative approach on the way my brain works in terms of structuring information. Very unglamorous job, and I stayed here locally because of social life, but it taught me a lot about words on the page in a really useful way. And eventually I just felt a bit stuck. I was at a sort of sexy sounding age with not at all sexy sounding job, so I sort of forced myself to go out on my own and set up Momo and put it all onto one agenda. And that's where I really developed sound for Momotempo as a project, and found myself doing lots of different things instead of nailing one thing. So in a sense, I'm a brand consultant when I'm working with words as a copywriter and an art director, and I've helped a lot of companies that are really very at a turning point, trying to work out how to articulate themselves and gone in there sensibly. And that's not about me, that's not about my face or my voice or who the hell I am. It's me articulating something for someone else. But the other end is the bit that sort of puts the light behind the eyes, which is exploring the world through my daft music sound. But then again, I get to articulate that for others as well through commissions for screen and theatre and installation. So it all feels like the same job to me. Only what I've grown into, and it has taken years, is sheer force of personality, just turning up being me. And I'm now at the age where I can do that, and it all sort of fits on one agenda. At last I can turn up and just be the bloke from Momo.
And as Nabil rightly, I think, mentioned before, that you are, for us at least, a creative in almost every sense of the word. But what is...
Write that down, somebody. I'm creative in every sense of the word. Yes. Well, that sounds good.
So what is the concept of creativity? What is it to you?
$1 million question.
That's a good question to Bob. Bob, by the way, is very house trained. He sits in the corner and says nothing. He sort of glistens unnervingly. Have you noticed that? Every now and again he changes colour in a sort of weird, slightly glistening-y way that's a bit unnerving, but I don't want to stare. We're very inclusive. So good work, Bob. But if Bob were asking me, creativity, well, I think the starting point is what is art? Because people often think they know or don't know what that is. I would say art is the instinctive exploration of life and living through creativity.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily make you a good artist, but if your instinct is to make sense of your living through writing or reaching for sculpture or paint or music, you are an artist. And then God's gift of your level of talent mixed with your determination to learn and practice and get your muscles working creatively defines how good you are, how good your work is. But you are an artist if your instinct is to make sense of life creatively, I would say. and I have that through music. Creativity generally is largely then an exercise in how to change the way you see things. So my definition of what art does is it creates new ways of seeing. It's that 20th century phrase. You're supposed to go into a gallery and come out looking at things differently. And I don't know how many times you've been to exhibitions lately, but I always come out looking at things weirdly. There's an old advert from the 1980s you won't have seen with Griff Rhys-James and Mel Smith for Addis plasticware.
Right.
And they're in a white cube gallery, and in the middle of it is a whole selection of red Addis plastic stuff, a bucket and mop, and Mel Smith is saying, yes, this is Addis in his red period, he's mistaking it for a bit of work, and then a cleaning lady comes and takes the bucket away. Okay, there's the gag. But the point is that gag's actually profoundly right about art, that you're meant to come out of a gallery looking at the bins and other things and going, wait, is that interruptive? Is that changing the way I see things? That's art's great power, and why it's more than just knobbing off in your bedroom with Photoshop or something. It's profoundly important to the way humans live, because we're storytelling creatures. We make sense of the universe through telling stories. So we need to be able to articulate stories and write down expressions of what we are, to paint pictures in our minds in order to then navigate the shrieking chaos of a huge cosmos. Somebody should write that down too. I'm not quite sure what I just said, but it sounded profound. So creativity would be then working into that and how to make it deliver it. And a lot of it is muscle reflex, it's muscle memory, it's practice writing, practice playing, practice doing stuff so that you get more confident, because the secret to good creativity is this one word, confidence. Learning to make confident marks. That's what I got out of university, actually. When I went on from next door, I went to Leicester Polytechnic, as it was when I started, and I nearly got thrown off for being rubbish, for being so uncreative. It was ridiculous. But the first year was a kind of foundation course, and I was so stiff and I hadn't learned how to think. And they kind of took me apart and put me back together again. And I still remember this one. I told this story many times, so dear listener, if you've heard me elsewhere, I apologise. But I was in a life drawing class, and life drawing class is how I learned that I wasn't going to be a cartoonist as I'd hoped to, because I can't draw, it turns out. My anatomy skills are terrible. But in the middle of this life drawing class, illustrator chap stopped everybody and said, look, I've seen a lot of you at your easels. Say you wanted to draw a pig. And I remember him doing this. He flips over a bit of paper and just starts sketching around the outline of a pig shape. And as he talked, he filled in this just simple outline, sketchy roughly. He said, you know, you're all doing that. You're roughly approximating what you're looking at. But the truth is you've got to get into the spirit of it and make deep, rich marks. So then he drew over it and got really kind of into it more. And you could see the depth of this thing start to come alive on the page. He said, that's what you've got to do, is get in amongst it and get confident. And that phrase, confident marks, confident mark making, has stayed with me in everything I do. That's the trick, is to get to the point where you can walk into a room and say what you say with enough conviction that people believe it, and put that conviction into what you're trying to muck around with on the screen or in people's ears.
And would you say that is the confidence, that's what makes you a good creative?
I think it is, in the end. Now, I mean, how you get confident is trial and error. It's trying stuff. We're kinetic learners. You've got to roll your sleeves up and get in and have a go. And that's why I was thinking on the way over here in the car that being an artist is a bit akin to working in a trendy sounding lean startup, where you test bed things. And we're getting a culture and business of trying and failing and working things up, just getting into it, make it, see if it works, then make the next iteration. WD-40 supposedly, took 39 failures to get to it, famously. So
did it?
Yeah, apparently that's the deal. Whether it's another myth spun by BBC Two comedy program
Sorry to
QI. But yeah, so that's the idea, that they kept testing wet and dry fluid, and number 40 was where they stopped. I don't know whether that's true, but there's a principle that's true. You just keep trying. And an artist is like that. You don't have a boss in the old sort of economic model of things leaning over you saying, you must do this. You might have commissions, but essentially you're in a gallery not making much money because you are following your own instinct, and that's trying and failing. And I think having the confidence to just keep trying when you think, everything I've done is crap, that's what will turn you into a better artist, that you don't just flounce out and say, I can't do it. You get stuck into it. And that's got to be true in the creative end of business. And advertising is where business meets arts, and that's why it's so dynamic and exciting. People
nowadays call anything art. And whether it's even doing a podcast or doing anything, do you see art as something so some things are not art, maybe scientific things, or is everything that people do in terms of creativity art?
Well, that's a good philosophical question. Welcome to the Moral Maze. I think it's open to interpretation. I would say there probably are things that aren't art. Design is, to me, if we talk of form and function, that's a bit like advertising, in that it's where something purely practical is meant to meet something that touches what we really are as beings, which is transcendental storytelling. We like things to feel nice.
Yeah.
So good engineering that does the job exactly is clever, but only up to a point. It's got to, in the end, add value to your living. So the things you keep using all the time are either things you simply can't live without, but might drive you mad, or the things you can't put down because they're just so nice. So there's art in a really nice bit of product design, but it's meant, the bit that excites me, I suppose, is that it's sort of somebody expressing their own character as an artist, but in something very applied. And I like that mix of kind of nerdy application and instinctive self-expression. So probably not everything is art, but art can end up in everything.
I like to think this podcast could be art.
I think it is art.
Well, you're instinctively exploring your life through it, aren't you? Through conversations and things, and it depends how much you feel you're expressing yourself in that. Interpretive dance, for example, we could just go straight into that and see how that feels.
I don't think the mics would stretch that.
That's a bit of a shame. We're painting a picture.
Bob will do a little dance.
Bob's, see, there he is straight away. You think he's not listening, and then he goes into a pirouette. And I think Bob's taking the pee half the time, doesn't he?
So just going back to it a little bit, you said you come from like a musical background. Going a little bit desert island discs here, but if you could take 3 albums onto a desert island, what would your top 3 albums be?
Oh no, that's hard. I couldn't. That's like books or art. Or how do you pin it down? And I don't know about you guys, but I do have things on my shelf that I really revere, but don't often listen to, or books that I really think are.
Well, we're millennials. We just use Spotify. We don't have like.
Well, I was using it in a generic sense. Books on the shelf is a nice turn of phrase. Although I do physically like books on the shelf. You should buy some books just to have them.
Just have them on the shelf.
Honestly, they add to your. They add value. Like vinyl, I suppose. I would say there is a record that I'd have to play a bit of on Desert Island Disc that isn't. It's not a smoothly rounded record, but it sort of defines the beginning of me going, oh wow, I want to be a musical creative.
Right.
It's a real piece of art in that it sounds like it doesn't care what anybody else thinks, and it doesn't really sound like anything else. It's Jean-Michel Jarre's 4th album, Zoo Look. Dig it out. The first piece of music in particular it's him at his high point creatively. I think it still lurks somewhere in the psyche of French popular culture. I think that album and Ethnicolor, especially the back end of Ethnicolor. I'm still trying to make that bit of music. It's a stunning example of when sampling exploded, but he just went from 0 to 60 overnight in kind of using the sampler in the richest, most mind-boggling kind of way. And it's kind of a clunky album, but kind of archly art and pop art, and there's something, these are all inadequate words, but there's something about it I still find inspiring as an idea, even though it's an imperfect thing. It seems like a really richly, instinctively expressed thing, rather than trying too hard. It's an oddity, and I love it for that. So that would be one, but gosh, what else? 2 other albums, we could be here all day just thinking about that. But I grew up, my instinct was listening to disco and funk. Right. And I grew up in a classical family where my mum's a graduate of the Royal College of Music and hated popular music at the time, and even though she's a very open-minded person, and she and my dad met in the Doyle Opera Company. My dad ran away to the theatre in his 30s. How brilliant is that? And they just sang their way around the world for a bit. But one thing neither of them were into was disco and funk, and as a nipper, that's what I was really drawn to, the groove. And then somebody handed me electronic music as a teenager in the 80s, and I just went, wow. And I've always loved the sound of music that sounds like no human hand has touched it. So space music, really, really interesting. Bob's music is what I love. And I can't make music quite like that because I had to turn up in it as a character. I had to learn how to adapt what I loved with who I am.
What would you? What's one album that you take?
No.
Come on, let's hear this.
Just one. I'm not asking.
Do you?
For 3.
No, okay, as millennials, you self-describe that way. Do you even listen to LPs, to whole albums, or is it purely shuffle?
I do listen. I mean,
if there's an album out there of a band that I like, I will listen to all of it just to see what I'll go with, to see what I think of it all.
Like for me, even though I don't know if this might be like, I don't know if it's cliche. I don't think it is, but like one of my favorite albums of all time is Dark Side of the Moon. and I can listen. Like I was listening today, I listen to it almost every day. Like
Yeah,
some part, a little bit of the album. It's just Pink Floyd to me was one of the most incredible artists in music ever.
Agreed.
Incredible.
Agreed, and
David
they're
Gilmour's.
kind of before my time as well. I remember when The Wall came out, and that was Roger
Yeah.
Waters driven, and that just seemed scary to me at the time. But the track "Brick in the Wall" is incredibly, it's funky actually. There's a real groove to it, and all of them throughout the different emphases that band has had. Yeah, I mean, Dark Side of the Moon is the definitive LP, I would say.
That's probably the one I take. I could listen to that all day.
Just, good answer. I agree with that.
What's yours? Nah, come on.
I'm trying to find. I don't know.
It's a benchmark.
You're trying to find the new Drake album?
No, what? Of course not.
I was over this Christmas. I got to see an unwarranted amount of popular music television at all my nieces and nephews' places, and there was somebody, one of the youngsters there, in her mid-teens. Justin Timberlake's new tune came on. I went, "Oh, this is good. It's got a bit of an actual groove." And she went, "Yeah, all the kids don't even know who he is." I'm thinking, but he's like younger than me by a long way, and the kids don't know who he is anymore. So this happens eventually. You just end up in your own world.
It'd be Radiohead.
Which
Oh,
one?
good choice.
Which one? The Bends. That'd be a good album.
Mm.
Particularly one song, I think High and Dry, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Or it'd probably be Master of Puppets for Metallica.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you, although in one sense the shuffle generation has given us freedom from the tyranny of boxes of culture. We don't any longer have to be in quite the same way a particular defined by music. We can shove it all together, Grandad. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I've long had this thing, the idea that technology always finds its level, and I think that level is always human. So the project in the 60s to build an entirely plastic house was ridiculous. Because plastic doesn't work like that, but it is in everything in other ways. Human things to me are wood and paper and actually vinyl. And the format of vinyl lends itself to auditioning a full, proper listening experience. And therefore I think like all other types of innovative technology, it will find its level, and that means that nothing will remain a kind of a monoculture forever. Your market will shrink, so vinyl will no longer be the only way. It isn't the way we listen to music anymore, it used to be. But it's never going to go away because there's something unique about the way you listen to music on vinyl, and it promotes listening to LPs, I think. And there's something humanly, storytellingly wonderful about a full LP. So when people worry about the death of the LP, I don't. It's just not going to be as ubiquitous as it was.
It's having a slight renaissance, isn't it? It's having a little bit of a resurgence of vinyl. I mean, I think I remember reading somewhere that it's coming back into.
It's getting weird. It's picking up. Yeah, it's picking up speed again.
Yeah, end of last year it outsold digital.
Did it?
Albums on vinyl outsold digital on vinyl. Digital music. Albums
that's a new thing.
Digital
it's
on
still on vinyl.
On vinyl. Well, you could do that with Twerp or something. You could probably code. Anyway, well, it's what it is, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, the point is, I think things find their level, and we can explore as we want. I think you guys should do a podcast on music next, and kind of auditioning old LPs that you found.
Ooh. Yeah, that might be interesting. Yeah.
Especially as millennials, to hear what millennials. But it's interesting you're gravitating to classics that we all gravitate to as big records.
I'm not I'm not that much of a fan of the music that's creative 2000 from the 2000s. I really like the old stuff because I think music back then had meaning and had stories ingrained into the lyrics and all of that, and the lyrics that people wrote were sort of related to what was going on at the time and all of that. Yeah. Nowadays, it's just normal. Like, I went to the shop to buy some fish. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not even that deep, is it?
£1 fish.
Yeah. No, you should write more songs about fish, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's tempting to feel the same way. And when you've seen the transition for a little bit longer, you do wonder: is it just me getting out of touch and becoming what I never thought I would? My granddad. Although he happened to be lovely, but not getting pop music anymore. Rock and roll no longer making sense. But I think there is a cultural shift where people, and I think it is partly the X Factor thing that people are pushed into performance and enjoying the performance side of things, but at the expense of the artist side of things, where you explore writing. And maybe that will come round as things are very cyclical in the human society. So I'd like to think we've certainly got lots to write about and lots to get angry about, I would say, at the moment. And that should feel good work. One of the weird things, though, is the way that technology has, I would argue, plateaued. Because back in the day, the 20th century, every decade was summed up by a particular type of technology. So tape technology in the 60s, and then synthesizers in the 70s, sampling in the 80s. And each of them had a massive effect on popular music. There was big shift in sound. Somewhere in the 90s, it all kind of plateaued, and I remember thinking at the time, oh, now we can kind of make any sound we like. And although behind the scenes technology shifted so that now it's easier to do it all on a laptop, the way we approach music and the sounds we're literally making hasn't really changed. And I think that's why in the 90s we had this sudden resurgence of Britpop and good old-fashioned songwriting, because people wanted to go back to the essence of the writing away from tech. But at the same time, you had electronic music suddenly become really cool in the UK. And let me tell you, up until then, it was the love that dare not speak its name in this country. It just wasn't seen by the music press as credible. Yeah. And then suddenly people were buying old vintage synths because there were some analog things were vintage in the 90s, all of a sudden 10 years old. And you had, on the one hand, Future Sound of London happening alongside Blur and Oasis. And it was I think the 90s were a brilliant time. 1994, my mate Simon and I are always saying, that's an incredible year for albums, because you had Blur, Park Life, Oasis, something or other, I paid no attention to Oasis, but one of their big albums. Massive Attack's big album came out. LTJ Bookham did a big album. There's a whole... Björk's debut came out that year. There's a whole raft of records that are now getting on for 25 years old that sound as fresh today as they did then. And that's mind-boggling to me, because I'm used to the idea of everything dating every 5 minutes.
They pass the test of time, don't they?
I think they do. There's so much work that does now. You've just got to go looking for it. It's not handed to you anymore. There's a wealth of music out there that is staggeringly good, but it's just not in the mainstream. It's got quite profound. There's a thoughtful air descended upon us.
Bob just feels sad.
Bob's just taking it all in. He's learning new stuff.
He never knew humans cared about music this much.
No, about his music.
Right, okay. The next question is something we ask every guest who comes on. It's one of our banker questions. If you had 10 seconds to pitch yourself in an elevator, what would you say? And we're going to time you on this as well.
Go on.
Go.
If your creative idea, your project, your initiative, your brand feels tired, come to me and I will encourage it. And if I get excited about it, I'll get you excited about it.
Time. Ooh.
Perfect.
That's good.
I used every inch there, didn't I?
Yeah.
On to the next segment of can you make the logo bigger? Which is where we ask...
Make the logo bigger. I should sing that. I can't remember how it goes now, but yeah.
So we would like you to take the biggest brand you think in your respective field, and where would you take them next?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of conversations around generally at the moment about how brands respond to now, and the idea that brands are going to switch from being mission orientated to activist, and they're going to have to start taking sides because of everything now.
Yeah.
And along with it, hand in hand, goes the idea of brands being truthful. And I have to say, on the occasions that I'm watching mainstream broadcast telly, adverts, it feels like all the grown-ups have finally left, and so the kids are taking over, but the grown-ups couldn't be bothered to teach them they're starting all over again. The copywriting and a car advert of today is still get kind of unrealistically good-looking chap in an unrealistically ugly-looking Japanese car that's beautifully engineered but looks like a brick. Make him look like he feels really cool driving it, spend a lot of money filming it. So that means kind of, are we going to take sides? And brands have to decide whether they're going to make, rather than try and please everybody, are they going to go for a niche audience? Now, of course, this reflects modern, current outlook for economics that becomes increasingly, instead of the old 20th century model of a few big things churning out millions of the same thing to millions of people and making audiences to sell them to, it's the other way around. It's we're becoming a world of individual producers flocking and swarming together. Now, can the big brands adapt to be like that? Can the big corporations adapt to be like that? Is there a place for truly big corporations in the 21st century? I think they're all sweating about that because they don't know. But I think brand-wise, it means you're going to see, the idea of losing the logo mark because no one can patent a new geometric shape anymore, or what that means. And still, I think storytelling comes back to it. The idea of the hipster thing of making a realistic business out of something truly human isn't just a joke or a gimmick. It's actually tapping into something I think has longevity in a way, whether the beard lasts or not. So where I would take a particular, who am I thinking of? I don't know, but I think brands that we all know and have loved, things like Apple, they epitomise the problem. They and Google, don't be evil, and yet they are the new industrial powerhouses. They're actually not in their model any different now to the big oil and gas companies from last century. How do they talk to individuals in the same way? How do they act like a swarm rather than one big monolithic preach? I think everything gets more and more individualized, just as tech is going to, as we kind of disperse our smartphones over our wearable tech or whatever, however that's going to work. So that dispersing the way you talk to people, and AI is going to help do that kind of thing, where we all get individual versions of brands, and how they manage that is going to be intriguing. I'm not sure who I'd seize to try and take them on, but I wish car companies would stop making very, very boring adverts that are too expensive, and I wish we'd stop appealing to mums being in the kitchen. You see some dads in the kitchen now, but it's still, you see almost no dads doing the washing on TV. I mean, I know there are reasons why people say that's the case, but it is just self-reinforcing. It's rubbish creative. It's not thinking about who we really are. So I think trying to simply shake up the way we're telling stories and be truthful. Yeah. Do you know what? I was in America at the beginning of last year, and I switched on the local cable TV just to see what it was like. And the adverts on there were kind of refreshing in that they just said, "Hey, buy this, it's cheaper than anywhere else, come here." I miss that kind of advertising that just says, this is what we're selling for how much, and this is why we're selling it to you. Honesty in there. I think there's quite a British psyche in that kind of don't pretend to be one thing and then feint, don't feint and then punch them around the side, just tell me straight. Although the British are terrible at saying anything straight, nonetheless, they don't like to be sort of courted. They wanted to just say, "I'm selling you this." And I think advertisers just get on with, when it gets to the business bit, just say what you're selling and why it's a benefit in a very old-fashioned way. But when it comes to the storytelling and the human bit, as a brand, put yourself in a context that is truthfully human and not just cozying up, not just playing with VR because it's the latest thing. Actually, be human. I think that's probably how I'd sum up everything I've done with my paying clients, is trying to help them remember they're human beings. And if they're in very unarty, in inverted commas, sectors like engineering or something that traditionally sees itself as quite distant from touchy-feely, I'm trying to remind them, you're a human being. You talk to other human beings, they have feelings. It's the impressions people get that they'll act on. So remember that. Loosen up, Daddy.
Should we move on to our little interactive, well, not interactive, is it?
Right, okay.
Participative.
Okay. Do we hold hands? Is this
No.
In a loving circle?
We can do.
There's a reason why I have a sketch pad and 2 Sharpies out, not just because I like drawing.
No, good. It feels creative having them lying around. I appreciate it.
It is. So each week, I need to get rid of these notes.
Don't keep them. Look at that. They look rich with.
Did they help?
Thought.
I think so.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out when the results come out. These are all exam notes.
Okay.
But
I guess we'll find out.
Did
your exam notes help? I guess we'll find out.
So we have there's a Twitter account called 1 Minute Briefs, which we've recently started doing, and the whole idea is each morning the guy who runs the account sets a brief out, and you have 1 minute to come up with an idea, and just post it, and it's purely just focused on that idea and
there's
nothing else.
no limit on target audience or
nothing like
budget.
that.
It's just the idea.
Purely idea.
And you have a minute to come up with it. And I think today's brief, which I really like, which is, have you heard about Nokia coming back? And releasing phones again, and they're going to release a version of 3310 again.
Oh, are they? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're bringing it back, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be the exact same phone.
Right.
It's going to sell for about £50.
Okay.
And they're bringing. So today's brief on 1 Minute Briefs is to advertise the Nokia 3310.
Oh.
That was my first ever phone.
It was my first ever phone.
When I was like 14.
I think that. Okay, no, I have an idea. I'm doing this
I think
one.
I think it might have been mine.
Okay.
Go on then. What is your idea?
There's your paper.
So we both have 1 minute each to draw something up, and then we got to talk about it and see who we think's
Gentlemen, your Sharpies.
done.
Oh dear.
So you're going to time us.
Right, I am.
So, Nabil, you're not taking part in this, are you?
No, we only have 2 Sharpies.
Oh, well, bottled. Okay.
That's my excuse this week. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Always drawing a box. Good start, Mirage.
Oh God, I forgot what it looks like. No, it doesn't look like that. No.
This is the bit where you just hear scuffling of Sharpies against paper.
Yeah, this is great. This is a good radio feature. Stick some Bossa Nova over the top.
30 seconds left.
I've got one headline and it needs a lot of work. Oh, yeah, okay, that's cheap. That's cheap peach, but cool.
Cheap Peach. I love it.
Cheap Peach.
10 seconds left. We need a countdown clock. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time.
I don't even care if my idea is not good. I just like it.
Go on,
I just like it.
Let's see yours.
I gave you guys
first,
0.53 of a second more as well. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Who's going to go first? Should I?
You go first, Raj.
Okay.
Go on.
So I've done
Yeah.
just the phone in a box, and I've just said hi again,
Okay.
just because it's coming back.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean that's...
And I think it might work because most people, like you said, like even you said, like I've said,
Hi.
this was our first phone that we ever remember having in a way,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of nostalgia, isn't it? I don't know. I don't even think it's that good. I just like it. I just
No,
get on with it.
I think that's... Well, the point is you could do that very simply and get people's
Yeah.
attention.
Mhm.
So as an attention grabber, yeah, why not? Keep it that simple. You tapped into a similar thing to me. I just immediately thought a really pompous sounding headline, Nokia, don't just travel in space, travel in time.
Ooh.
With a potential tagline, making memories of tomorrow. So I think we're tapping into the same idea that there's this nostalgia thing, but what's a phone for? It's for connecting with people, obviously. And but actually, what do you really need to make a connection with someone? It's just conversation. You don't need all the apps and the other stuff. And the truth is, I guess, that apps are going, as apps do disperse across a mesh of wearable tech, so we stop visually interacting so much, annoying shape.
Yeah.
The phone is just for them talking to people.
And wow, that was a bit of a...
Oh my God!
What happened, guys?
Oh.
That was this radio segue brought to you by being kicked out of our room. So we're now in a different sonic environment to finish our link. Yes, so the Nokia, all you need is to talk to people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, and that is their slogan, right? The slogan is connecting people.
It was them who had that. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So
I'm going to apologise for any background noise that we might have. The moving in the time-space continuum to another location is meant that we're now...
Although we may be the first people ever to do it,
Yeah.
it's got its
Yeah, just don't tell anyone. Keep it secret.
yeah.
okay.
Keep it yourself.
No one will know.
So, can you describe your career in 3 words?
Should have prepped for this, shouldn't I? 3 words.
They can be hyphenated.
Yes, I know. Bonner in particular sort of made up quite a long sentence out of hyphens, didn't he? In his response, which is using your wit. 3 words. Can't even put me on the spot.
You can do 3 short phrases. if that's better.
No. I don't. Oh, I can do it in 5. I don't have a career. Yeah, not in the classic sense. What the hell would it be? Oh no, my career is this: in a shed.
Nice.
I started making music literally in a shed in my parents'
Really?
garden, and I'm now in a glorified shed, and it feels circuitous. I'm a bloke in a shed.
It just shows, kids, you can do anything you put your
can.
mind to.
Moved up in sheds.
I've slightly moved up in sheds. Yeah, it's slightly better insulated now. I can say that.
I think one of the main questions we had down that we wanted to ask you is the projects you're working on right now, and as well as taking into account the projects that you've done previously. What's been one of the ones that you've enjoyed the most, found the most interesting, or maybe even didn't enjoy the most, but at the end you sort of were happy with what came out of it?
I mean, it's quite disparate, and I think what I've enjoyed in more recent years is getting to mix between being the bloke up the front, presenting things, or sharing my own work, and articulating things for other people, or even being behind the camera. When I started Momo, a lot of my time was simply getting my head around the basics of how to run a business and get work, and a lot of it was graphic design work, and music was in the background. And what I've enjoyed is how the artist side of my life has come out in the last 5-6 years especially. So now I can legitimately say I'm a bloke from Momo and turn up as an unheard of personality and sort of get away with it. I do really enjoy that, so that now I'm doing more work, not simply commissions musically for film and TV and things like that, but for art installations where the art bit is really getting into what I'm working on. I'm just starting a project with Valleys Noir Theatre Company. They're doing a piece in May at the Poole Maritime Festival, and I'll be writing music and sound design for that, but also performing in it. And that crossover of performing and writing sound, but thinking of it from a branded storytelling point of view, is a nice mix of all the things I do. So that's coming up. But the thing I'm all consumed by at the moment is a project I think is going to bring all of Momo together into one nice project. And I'm not releasing the name of it yet, but in fact, look, I'm going to give you a glimpse at this. Ooh. Dear listener on the radio, I'm afraid you're not going to get to enjoy this, but I wrote a creative thesis about the next project. And there it is. Look at this. Feel the weight of that.
Jesus.
Wow. Look at
that is massive.
This is my sort of creative, it's the thesis to what I'm drafting. And the core of the next project is, in fact, the third studio album by Momotempo, in which it is no secret I shall be taking Amigos into space. Yeah, but from the beginning...
This could just be so many sound bites of you.
High quality paper.
Filthy noises. I did a short run of these. Yeah. So I've been conceiving exploding out the next album into a whole event, a kind of sonne lumiere of motion graphics and live performance and an art installation performance is what we're calling it pompously. We want it badged somewhere in art and put into interactive spaces rather than proper music venues, looking at the future. Now, I'm not going to say too much more than that here, but I am putting together the whole LP is kind of on the table, and I'm starting to work some really interesting partners to work this whole thing up for the end of the year. Biggest thing I've ever done, and it is pulling together digital tech and possible digital production art, and as well as the music and scaling up the live sound that I do, into a whole kind of fable about space. And I can't wait to start sharing it with Amigos. I'm going to start bothering my family of social media chums, as I've got to raise a lot of money to do this thing and all kinds of practical things that I've never done before. I'm ready for that sort of challenge. It's going to be like making a film. In fact, we are making a short film to run through the middle of the whole experience. So it's a sort of 5-pronged platform that we're trying to make, and Lord knows whether I can, but it feels like a project about now, and it's very linked to what I was hinting at the open source talk Matt kindly asked me to do last October.
You touched on that open source talk a little bit, and off air we talked about it as well, and you were mentioning the future. And where do you see Momo going? Look into that crystal ball of yours in the future. Where is Momo in 5 years?
Well, that's a good question.
In a better shed, but...
It might be. I think actually in terms of the musical space, it's more likely that one day I might rent a bigger studio to work in. But as a little project pocket studio, mine's a great space. And working from home is nice and efficient, so my work-life space is kind of one thing. But it suits me weirdly. But Momo as a whole, I think it is the collision of art and business, design with performance. I think everything's coming together in this project, and I think it might lead me to doing more work that is literally talking about future issues and future tech. So I think the art side of my work has come out more as a music artist, and I think that might be more what I do. But I am wondering, I'm looking into my crystal ball, and I haven't yet seen where I'm next going to be able to invoice somebody for something. I need to come up with a way. I've got a few jobs on, but it is true that I'm kind of, this year I've thrown myself into this as a bit of a punt. I think every now and again in your business life you get to a turning point, and this is one for me, which I'm inordinately excited about.
And did you say people can expect this at the end of this year?
Yeah, I'm gunning to try and put it into arts festival season in Bournemouth in October. Okay. Whether we can manage that or not depends on how I do with funding and how people can get involved. But I'm as excited now about meeting the people I'm going to meet who will help support this as I am about the work itself. I mean, I'm excited about the music. It's some great daft Momo things coming up, I can promise you. But actually those I've met to help me make the production, but also those who I want to talk about as part of the sponsorship of it. I can't wait to point people at them and point towards the future, if you like. So this has become a big conversation point for me, really, to go out and meet people and to try and work out between us, what the hell does the future look like? So more on that soon. Look at the usual Momo challenge. You can't have that, Nabil. I did a short run of
stealing it.
I'd love to let you have one, actually, to read it in the bar, but I am now running out of them. I did a short run for...
It's very nicely designed.
Thank you. Yeah, it helped me get... I now know what I'm trying to say, and this is a thesis in my head of why I'm doing this. Because researching science fiction and just playing around with different types of sci-fi music, I didn't expect to lead me to read about the issues that I have been to do with economics and the environment. And so I'm kind of all fired up at the moment to try and do something mad.
Sadly, viewers, that's all viewers.
Viewers.
Listeners.
One day.
That's all we've got time for. Timo, Momo, we've had a wonderful hour chatting to you. I wish we could chat longer. Thank you so much for coming on. If people want to find you, where can they?
I would
On the interwebs.
On the interwebs, basically look for Momotempo. Momotempo.co.uk is the source of everything. You'll find all playlists there, SoundCloud, my daft YouTube videos. Find me on Twitter, same thing. And I'm about to rebrand in the next few weeks. Momo's going to pop up with a whole fresh new look. So catch the old fun one while you can. So look, hit me up, say hello. I'm really interested to meet people who've got other things going on and mixing it up with you. And guys, thanks for having me on. I wish we could have talked for a lot longer.
Thank you so much.
I know, I really do.
There's a lot to chat around, and you guys are splendid, and you are carving out a very nice. No, but it's true. You get this all the time because the gang in Bournemouth, and I too, like a lot of people who've been on your show before, can happily wax lyrical about how brilliant the scene has become here. And you guys have tapped into why it works.
Yeah.
You're doing it. You're getting out and meeting folk, and you've heard this before, I know. But you really are.
You never get tired of hearing it, don't you?
No, seriously.
Stop saying nice things about us.
No, stop saying it.
Keep going,
more.
keep going,
A bit
keep
more.
going.
Stop saying it. A little bit more. But it's true. You've got to get out and knock on doors, and that's how you change the world, which is what we're in the business of trying to do.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Cheers, guys.
See you guys next week.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Life's a Pitch. We hope you enjoyed it. If you're listening to us on SoundCloud, you can like our page and leave us a comment telling us how shit we were or how great we were. That's up to you. If you're listening to us on iTunes, please leave us a rating and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
And if you want to follow us on social media, you can like our Facebook page, which is LAP Pod. Follow us on Twitter at Life's a Pitch Pod. And also follow us on Instagram at Life's a Pitch Pod.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.